Derp, here we go. Hey,
They're
guys.
on the way.
All right. Hey, God, I'll throw it in the calendar too. But we're live. We got a few people coming over. Thanks, everyone. Hang tight for 1 second while we get everyone else over. Change of venue. All right, I'm just changing the calendar and we can get started. Thanks, everyone. 1 second. Awesome. Thanks for coming, Tatiana. All right, now we can get going. We have some of us here. So what we'll go ahead and do while we get people switched over from the other YouTube room, if you wouldn't mind in the chat, everybody, go ahead and give us a quick hello and tell us your name, where are you joining us from today, and maybe your job title. What do you do? Are you a teacher? Are you a trainer? Are you a principal? So we'll leave that up for a moment while we make sure other folks come from our other chat we had. We have Tatiana from Los Angeles. Thanks for coming. Hey, Stacy from Kentucky. Always good to have Kentucky folks in the crowd. Hey, Daniel. Thanks for coming. Akeisha, great to have you from New Jersey. Awesome. So keep those introductions coming. I'm going to go ahead and introduce a couple of our trainers who are on the call today. So we have Kate, Kim, and Sean are hanging out with us. So Kate, why don't you introduce us? Let us know where you are, what's your background with the Google for Education Level 2 certification, and what you're excited about today.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Wendy. My name is Kate Petty, and I am the director of certification programs for EdTech Team. And I am located in sunny Irvine, California today. So we've got some nice weather going on. I am specifically with our company to work on Google certifications. So basically, my entire career is dedicated at this point to level 1, level 2 trainer, and the innovator program. So I'm really excited to be here and to be sharing what has definitely become my passion over the last 2 years.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. Great to have you here. Kim Randall, where are you? What are you? Tell us about you.
Tell us about you. Awesome. Thanks, Wendy. Kim Randall, and I'm a Google certified trainer and innovator. And I am currently in the very nice and warm and sunny San Francisco Bay Area today as well. And I, along with Sean and Kate, run a fair amount of the boot camps. And so I'm really excited to share more about level 2 with everybody.
Hey, thanks for being here, Kim. Excited to have you share with us some tips for folks taking the level 2 certification. Next up, we got Sean from are you in the East Coast today, Sean? Where are you? What are you?
Today I'm in Connecticut. So I'm home in Connecticut right now. Sean Williams, trainer, innovator. Kate keeps me busy running all over the country doing boot camps and other things, other work with the team. And that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Glad to have you here. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Kate. So what we're going to do today, everyone, there was an initial webinar. This is our second in our series of webinars about the Google for Education Certified Innovator Program. What we're going to cover today is we just did introductions. We're going to dive into the training center for Google for Education. So Kate and Kim and Sean are going to take us through what that training center looks like, how you can get prepared. Particularly, we'll focus on the Level 2 certification today because that's a prerequisite for the Google for Education Certified Innovator Program. And then we'll look at the exam center itself, so some tips for heading into that labyrinth and actually finishing your exam and getting your certification so you can apply to become an innovator. That's our goal today. If you have any questions in the chat, it'll be archived here on this new YouTube link that you got. And we'll have one more webinar about just your application coming up in 2 weeks. So we'll share that date with you at the end of today. Cool. Let's see if any other intros came in the chat. Hey, Jody. Hey, Kelly. Hey, Carl, Daphne. And, oops, oh, I'm looking at the old one, but hopefully you guys all came over. Emily, Lavita, Olivia, Mitchell, Scott, Martin, Tatiana, oh, Gennaro from Lima, Elizabeth, Kelly. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We're really excited to have you here today. Cool. We'll keep cruising. Hopefully you're all here. The next Innovator Academy that's coming up is in Venice, California. So that's the hashtag LAX18 cohort. We reviewed in our last webinar, and I'll drop the link in the chat, a bit more about the entire program. So watch that if this is your first time hearing anything about this, because we're going to dive right into the Level 2 certification. But you'll see here there is a few other opportunities if July 9th through 11th doesn't work for you. This application is due on May 18th, so you still have a little under a month to complete your application, to get Level 2 certification, and create a video. But if that's not going to work, you can see there's also a Denmark cohort in November. That application opens later on this year, due September. That's our only other English language opportunity this year. If you speak Spanish, you're eligible for the Mexico cohort. That'll be in November as well. And the Madrid, Spain cohort in October. So a few options this year. And then next year, new opportunities will come around. But these are the only innovator cohorts that are happening for 2018. We hope you're all interested in applying. So in the chat, if you wouldn't mind, for Sean and Kate and Kim, let's set the stage and let us know, are you certified already? So did you already get your Level 1 certification for Google for Education? Did you get your Level 2 yet? Or maybe you haven't, and that's why you're here. Maybe you don't know what either of those are, and our awesome trainers will give us a quick overview on the program itself. So go ahead and drop that into chat. And let's see, what are we looking at here? We've got lots of no's. That's totally okay. You're in the right spot to learn how to become certified. Kelly and Lakeisha, we got some Level 1s. Olivia is currently studying for Level 2. If you don't have your Level 1 yet, that's totally okay. The Level 2 certification is the requirement, but we'll hear from our trainers on any tips for Level 1 curriculum. Awesome, Christy, you're Level 2, so you're hereby nominated to give us some tips and feedback today as well. Scott, you are as well, so excited to hear what you say about some of our folks interested. Stacy too, awesome. Excited to have a few helpful test takers in the audience. Elizabeth, you've got trainer. Cool. Great news. Awesome. So keep that chat going. If you have any questions and or tips for our existing Level 2 folks, if you're in the audience and you do have your Level 2, I encourage you to stick around and give tips, but also come to our final webinar about your application. And feel free to throw any general application questions you might have in there as well. We'll try to take some time to answer those. Cool, about to start on both, Tom. Awesome, you're all on the right hangout, I think. And I'll go ahead and throw in a link to get us started of the training center so that everyone has what we're talking about. The training center has the Innovator application in it, and it also has everything you need for the Level 1 and Level 2 studying as well. So I'll drop that link in. If everyone in the chat wants to fire that open in another tab in their browser, you can watch these beautiful people on the chat that also follow along, click through, and walk through it with us today. Cool. And with that, Sean Williams is going to take us through how do you even begin. And maybe I'll even have you start, Sean, because I'm seeing in the chat there is a few folks who maybe this is brand new. Did you want to share anything about your journey with level 1 and level 2? What is it? Why would somebody want to get it? Paint for us our certification picture.
Sure, no pressure there. So I'm a big fan of the level 1 and level 2 certifications. My journey was, I was in a school district, and I was like, we'd learn something new. I'd go to a conference and go back to my school and be like, hey, there's this really cool thing, let's do it. And everybody was like, oh, Sean, so getting that level 1 certification is like, no, look, I actually know what I'm talking about. And it was a good little badge, a little like proof that I knew what I was talking about. The level 2, I think, is really great. And for people who are maybe not just working in an individual school site, but going around from site to site. And it's a badge saying like, you really know your stuff, and it's something to be, pretty proud of. Both the tests are pretty involved, and takes a commitment to get to. So I think they're really valuable. Thanks,
Sean. Kate, how about you? Want to tell us a bit about the level 1 and level 2 certifications in general and why somebody might want to get them?
Absolutely. So level 1 is all the foundational skills in most of the G Suite apps. So you're looking at Drive, Docs, Sheets, Slides, Forms, Sheets, Classroom, Gmail, Calendar, Sites, Google Groups, and Chrome. I think I got them all. And the one that people are going to struggle with, your level 1, is going to be Google Groups. That's not one that's out there that most teachers use. So my suggestion is, if you're already a pretty big user of Google, remember, you just need to know the foundational, like very, very basics of each of those apps. So if you already know the basics and you've been working with Google for a long time, I feel, or 2 or 3 years maybe, I feel like maybe you could just try taking the test and seeing if you pass for level 1. And that's a $10 exam fee, so it's not totally horrible if you don't pass. My suggestion would just be to watch a quick YouTube video on how to use Google Groups and play with that a little bit, because that's going to be the one you don't know. Level 2 now are all the advanced features of Google, of those same apps, but they also include Blogger, and they also include Maps and My Maps. And so Blogger, again, is going to be the one many teachers aren't super familiar with, so you definitely want to check that one out. But the big difference is level 2, while you might get away with not doing too much with level 1, with level 2, you're definitely going to want to go through the training center and or attend a training event. Because there are things on the exam that are going to be asked of you that you may never have heard of before, unless you've gone through the training center, and gone through all of the different types of assignments. So that's the big difference between level 1 and level 2. Level 1, I would take just so that you get familiar with the exam, so that for your level 2, you know what to expect. The level 1 and level 2 exams are very similar. So I would definitely take level 1 to prepare for the level 2 exam, so you know kind of what to expect when it's on there.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate, for that. I know it's a big question. Folks have the difference between the two. Kim, do you have any thoughts around the way that the training center is set up and with the units and, diving into those?
Sure. So I was just looking at it, and I'm going to go back. They're really broken. Level 2 actually has less units than level 1. But everything goes a little bit deeper and more advanced into, all the apps and things that you did in level 1, with the addition of the other apps that Kate mentioned. And so it's broken into kind of these 3 chunks. So, thinking about your professional growth and leadership as a teacher, and then really using the tools to, increase your own efficiency and saving time, and also your students too. And the other big one too is working with sets of data and lots of large data sets with maybe student data across, different sets like throughout the year or multiple years. So being comfortable working with that, I think, is a big one. And then really digging deep into like effective lesson design. And making things very student driven. And so that's where a lot of the rest of the apps that you'll work with really come into play, and some of the creation of the things you'll do with them.
Awesome.
Does that help?
Yeah, thanks, Kim. So I'll tee it back to you, Sean. Thanks. Now that we have kind of a picture of these units, the difference between level 1 and level 2, Sean, did you want to tell us maybe how you've seen other educators who are studying and trying to feel prepared to actually take the exam? What are some strategies for studying and starting to get to know some of these apps and the way they work when you're doing lesson design?
Well, I think for the best thing to do is kind of like Kate was saying, get in there and play around and make sure you're experienced with everything. But the training center is designed pretty well. So for level 1 and level 2, it's about a dozen different units that are broken into different sections. So it's very manageable. I would not suggest to anyone to try and dive in and go through the whole thing like in one day. That's just nuts. It's a lot to try and take in. But it is really manageable. Each section, takes probably 20 minutes to go through each part of it. So you can look at them. Most of the sections are most of the units rather probably have like about 5 or 6 different sections in them. So what I did was I took it 1 unit at a time each day and tried to work through all that stuff. And then it's pretty great at the end of each section. And then as well at the end of each unit, there's like a little review practice test, which is really handy because you can see exactly the questions you missed and go back. And I think that's really helpful, if nothing else, to get used to taking an online exam and looking for, understanding how the test itself works. I know of some teachers who had the knowledge to do things successfully on the test, but the test taking format was new and threw them off. So I would suggest however you do it, you need to know yourself. And if you're better at like just doing, I can free up 20 minutes each day. Okay, well, go in and do 1 like section a day, and then take the quiz at the end, keep track of what you need to prepare for and go through them that way. For me, I kind of blasted through a whole unit each day. And then after whatever, a week and a half, took the test and was like, oh, okay, I know, felt pretty comfortable and confident going in to do that. And if you're like Kate was talking about, you use, the Google pretty often, you could just jump to those unit reviews at the end and take that quiz. And if you miss one, it'll direct you right back to the section that you need to go through and brush up on. And then you can feel pretty good moving on to the next one. That would be my advice.
Awesome. Kim or Kate, any other thoughts around diving into one of the specific units and studying, going through, as Sean mentioned, just kind of unpacking the anatomy of one of these units? Kim, you did a great job kind of showing the 3 buckets that these units might land in. And then Sean, thanks for sharing a bit about study strategies for that. Kate or Kim, do either of you have any ideas around unpacking one of these units in particular?
I was just going to add in that if the unit you're working in gives you, either a doc or a sheet or something to practice with, make sure you do that. Make sure you're really comfortable with, whatever the activity is, because that's going to be an important skill for when you go and take the test. The one I'm thinking of is Unit 4 for analyzing student data.
I think too, all of the units in the training center have really great lesson ideas. Mm-hmm. So you may have been using one of the applications for something in your class, but this is going to give you 5 or 6 or 7 different other ways to use them with your students that are really engaging for both you and them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kate. Cool. Let's turn a bit to our chat. I have a couple questions I'll throw out to you guys on the panel, but feel free to share with us right now. How do you like to study for an online exam? So knowing a little bit more about the 3 buckets that the units are in, some of the topics, a little bit about how they're set up. Either if you're like Stacy on the chat and you've taken it before, or if you're just starting to go through it, any tips for how you like to study or practice some of the techniques that are in the training center before you take the exam? So throw that in the chat. And meanwhile, while folks are sharing tips for studying or practicing, I'll throw a couple questions out to you 3. Christine's asked, what is the percentage of multiple choice and scenario-based questions on the exam itself?
So if you haven't taken your level 1 or your level 2 exams yet, what's important to know is that there are multiple choice type questions and there are performance tasks on that test. And I believe everything is weighted differently. And it may be weighted even more differently depending on the day, depending on if Google has changed something in their center that day. And I've seen that happen. So you really don't know what you got until the end of the test. There's no way to kind of track your progress on what your score is throughout. You're just going to find out at the end. But the performance tasks, well, then the multiple choice is going to make your heart rate beat. It's going to be one of those things where we can't control it. We all get anxious when we have to take the multiple choice section. There's only one right answer. But on the performance task, it's like just this rush of relief after being all anxious about the other part, because there's 100 different ways to be able to do the one thing they're asking you to do, and you've been doing it for so long that you'll know how to do it with ease. So it'll be nice.
Thanks, Kate.
Along that note is, since there are 100 different ways to do just about everything, the end product is what's important, not how you get there.
Right.
Awesome.
I think the other thing that I would really suggest is, again, following along the exams types of stuff, is to pay attention to every little step they tell you to do. If you skip something, or if you don't do something completely, or if you don't name it the correct thing, you most likely will get that question wrong. So it's hard for us as teachers I think we might be the worst direction followers ever as teachers, but we've got to, the hardest part is making sure we're following every single direction they're asking us to do on that test.
And sorry, but also to follow up on that, because we are teachers, people tend to I don't know, if it asks you to find an image of something, teachers will scroll and scroll and scroll and try and find the absolute best image. Nobody's ever going to see it and judge you. So just get it done, get the first image or the first search result or whatever they ask you to do, get it, paste it, or whatever you're doing, and move on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was just going to add, make sure you kind of reread, the questions so that you are making sure you're not missing any steps.
And Michelle M., your question that you just asked, do not do more than it asks. So it's just a script that's going to run through. And if it blocks into something that you did that it didn't ask you to do, it's going to get stopped. You're not going to be able to get scored on the rest of it. That's my very simple way of thinking about scripts. So don't do anything that it tells you not, or don't do anything that it doesn't tell you to. So if it doesn't tell you to make your font pretty, don't make your font pretty. And that's another thing that's hard for us as teachers, is to just do, the bare minimum. So don't do more than it's asking you. Only do what it asks you to do.
Thanks, Kate. We've got some tips coming in from the chat as well. Christy took hers on the couch, or studied on the couch. Any other thoughts on where you guys like to study the most? Are you guys couch people too, or chair people?
I'm a group person. I love to study with a group, take my test with a group. I just need a group mentality for that, for sure. It makes me feel better. Like my anxiety goes down when I'm with people.
Yeah, I think I did everything at the local coffee shop, so that there was some background noise and I wasn't just sitting alone, because it's way too easy to open a new tab and get distracted. And
totally. I wanted to make sure Starfish got Starfish's question answered on scenario types. Any thoughts on how long? And I see, Sean, you answered it in the chat, but maybe you could share out loud for scenario type questions and time to respond.
Well, yeah, I think the scenario questions are the ones that take the longest. And especially if you have any sort of testing anxiety, like try and get through the multiple choice drag and drop questions. You can flag them if you're not sure, but don't spend too long on any of those. Just try and get them done so you have as much time as possible for the scenarios, because they are pretty involved. Like, it'll set the stage. You'll get a little vignette and be like, here's the situation. You're a middle school science teacher, whatever. And then you'll have to do like 4 or 5 different tasks related to that scenario. So it does take some time. So try and get through that first chunk of multiple choice questions as quickly as you can. Flag ones you're not sure of. So if you have time, you can go back and check them out later. But just try and blast through those. And I would say try and save at least 2 of the 3 hours for doing the performance tasks.
I actually tell people to spend no more than 30 minutes on the multiple choice at the beginning. Make sure you answer every single question to the best of your ability. If you think that the searching for the answer is going to take too long, mark your best answer and move on. That way, if you do have time at the end of the test, like Sean said, you can flag it to come back. But if you didn't have time at the end of the test, you've at least answered to the best of your ability. So I'll generally say don't spend any more than 30 minutes on that first part.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. If you flag something and don't go back to it, does it count it at all?
As long as you answered, if you put in an answer and flag it, it definitely counts.
Awesome. And then Christine's asked, are you allowed to use written notes to help you during the test? Any thoughts about combining your study of going through all of the units in the training center and preparing to actually take the exam? Any thoughts towards Christine's question about synthesizing some of those into notes, or other strategies for bridging your studying into exam taking?
Well, Christine, it's an open book test. So, you can use online notes and written notes. I think that one time I actually did run over to YouTube to look for how to do something real quick, and came back and answered the question. So, I mean, you feel like you have a little bit of time if you know exactly where you're going. But as an open book test, I don't think there's so many things you have to know as far as written notes go, that as long as you know and you can answer the questions and the review questions, you should be fine.
Mm-hmm. I think spending the time digging through written notes might actually slow you down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you had, and I encourage people to have like a Chromebook or another device nearby. So if you've got to do a last minute search for some information, you can do that without messing with the test environment that you're in.
Awesome. Great tips, you guys. Cool. Keep those coming in terms of studying and going through the actual training center. We'll switch gears in a minute and move into the exam center where you're actually taking the exam. But before we did that, I did want to see, Kim, did you have anything else to share for going through the units and diving into them to, looking at the time that it recommends on there, the products that are covered? When you sit down or you sit down with other folks studying for these and getting to know how all the products work together, any tips for what that looks like to sit down? Do you kind of just go through and read through each one of these, learn how skills? Yeah, any other thoughts? I'll use Unit 1, promoting the effective use of digital tools, as an example. Any thoughts around the flow of studying for this?
Yeah, I would, and I'd definitely read through all the sections within the unit. And if there's something you haven't spent much time with, like let's say, Blogger, then I would spend the time digging a little bit deeper into, okay, well, what do I need to know about Blogger? Creating a blog and creating a post and, how all that works. And yes, using those help pages that they link to are great as well. So I think that's a really good strategy, is kind of going through the things that you're maybe less comfortable with or have less experience with, in the classroom or as an educator.
Thanks, Kim. I'll ask in the chat, does anybody have, now's the time to share your fear. Does anyone have one of the products that are listed in the training, in the advanced training center? Is there any products that are scaring you a little bit? Kate mentioned groups for level 1 ends up being a little bit of a barrier for some because you may not have used it that much. The goal of having the level 2 certification as a prerequisite for the Innovator program is that ideally you come to the Google office for 3 days and you're really comfortable with the tools and can start to dream up some pretty cool solutions to problems. Back in the day when it was the Google Teacher Academy, a lot of the sessions used to be very how-to based, or the tools were all quite new and exciting. But now we found that so many educators are using this on a daily basis that the magic really happens when you have a base foundation for not only the tools, but the philosophy as well. So let's see, what are you guys most maybe worried about with products that you haven't used very much? So go ahead and throw that in the chat, and maybe Kim, Kate, and Sean have some ideas for you. But again, once you unpack, you'll see that it starts with that philosophy at the top. So you're not going to see a unit called blogging. You'll see something about student voice rather. And so you'll have to kind of drill down into each of these 9 units to see which products it actually covers. So if there's any of these that you're not super familiar with, let's hear it in chat. Kathy says classroom. Cool. Any tips for, I guess, just using Kathy's example with classroom, also going through the lesson plans, but anything that, in the next couple of weeks before someone might take the test that they could do to become more comfortable in some of the products and the scenarios that the training center offers?
I think what I mentioned before is just, if you're not familiar with Classroom or Blogger or groups, just go to a YouTube and find a 5-minute video, one that's watched a lot and one that's newer, because we know Google products change. So you don't want to watch a video for something that has been completely redesigned by Google. So find something that's within the last year, if you can, on just a tutorial, and then go in and play with it on your own. As far as data sets, Michelle, I'm an English teacher, and if I can do what they're asking me to do on level 1, level 2, then I feel like anyone could, because I've actively avoided spreadsheets my entire life. So you should be fine on sheets as long as you go through the center and you know basically what the things are that they're going to ask you. But there, you don't. I mean, it's not so involved that like me, I can't. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
We have got a few questions. Is Google Scholar a part of level 2? And Martin hasn't seen drawings before. Any tips for Martin on exploring? Maybe there is a tool that pops up and they've never seen it before at all. Any thoughts on drawings and Scholar?
Just get in there and play and practice and try.
I think I would like build on Kate's idea of if you go to YouTube and find like a short video that's like 3 or 4 minutes that'll give you like the big idea of what the tool is, whether it's Scholar or drawings or whatever. And then in the training center, you can be like, okay, now I've got a general idea of what this thing is, and I can take the 15 minutes to read what they're talking about and play with it and figure it out.
And you could also search, drawings, Google Drawings for educators or Scholar for educators, and see, there should be lots of resources that come up online as well.
Thanks, Kim.
For your Google Drawings, again, YouTube will help you. If you just put in Google Drawings to YouTube and find that 5-minute video, it's so simple. Once you know what it is, you'll be fine.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that for Martin, and thanks for sharing about Classroom with Kathy. I did see here in the chat, Starfish is good with sheets. Could we team up with someone? So I'll drop a link in here for everyone who signed up for level 2. We did make a quick hangout chat. So if you want to join a crazy chat and help each other get through level 2, you can join that chat. There's a couple people from the YouTube chat in there right now. So please feel free, that's in there if you want to do like Starfish is saying and meet up for some of your studying online. You're welcome to do that. Christy said Gavin Middleton has some cool drawings lessons for Google. Thanks, Christy, for sharing. Cool. Any other questions? We're going to switch gears and go into the exam center. Again, Martin, just showing you here in once you drill down, so if you are playing around with each unit, here I'm in that Unit 9, Give Students a Voice. If there is a product you don't know, as Kate and Kim and Sean mentioned, the Help Center, and then examples of actual lessons using drawings. So do click around and play and get in there before you get into the exam center, so you're familiar with what's going to get covered. Cool. So last chance for any questions here in the training center and clicking through these 9 units. Cool. Keep those coming if they do come in. With that, I think we will switch over to the exam center. So if you are here in the training center and going from, there's your level 1 and your level 2, start your training. When you're ready, you can go to certification, and anything you guys, before they do take the leap and go into Examtown, any thoughts around the sample exam questions that you recommend for getting familiar with the format?
There's all sorts of resources online if you Google search Google level 1 resources. So you've got these sample exam questions, which really help visualize what's actually on the exam. But there are all sorts of resources online as well. I know that Eric Kurtz has a really great checklist. If you look him up, he's got great checklists for both level 1 and level 2 that you can kind of just check off as you go. And it'll help you, really prepare for this exam part of it.
Oops. What?
I think the innovator, Wendy, left the chat accidentally. So I think we can just keep moving on. Kim, if you want to talk about, I'm sorry, Sean, if you want to talk a little bit about what to expect when you register for the exam and the wait time between registering and actually taking it.
Sure. Sorry about that. I was in the chat. Yay! We are still. I have the chat open, but I didn't have the YouTube open. So I'm like, wait a second, are we still live? But yeah, so some key points with the registering for the exam is you got to do some planning because it's taken up to like 2 days to get the information with the test account and stuff. Sometimes it only takes like 2 minutes, but other times it takes a couple days. I honestly don't have a good reason why that is. It seems like it's automated and it should just happen, but whatever. And so part of that is you've got to plan a 3-hour block at least 2 days in advance. And when you do fill out the form, you got to have some flexibility. You got to do it ahead of time, I guess. Because when they send you that email, you have, what is it, Kate, 7 days?
7 days, 7 days, but UTC time.
Yeah. So from when they send it, that's how long that account is good for. So I try and tell people to plan it out like a couple days in advance so that if life happens and you can't do it and that 3-hour block that you were planning on, you still have a couple days on the other end to try and find some free time for it. What else? They have all the instructions in there. Probably the only other like tip that's not totally like people don't seem to think about it is when you get that information to log in to go into it. Whoa, there we go. When you get your information to log in, to do that login using the incognito window. And then I suggest to people that they close all the other windows that they might be logged into and just have that incognito window running. I know of a few people who didn't, and for the performance tasks worked really hard and did a great job, but didn't realize when they opened a new tab, it popped them back into their like gmail.com account. And so they ended up having to redo everything in the test account and running out of time, and it's not a pleasant experience.
Yep, I agree. I think if make sure you're in an incognito window, and then what I would definitely recommend is what Sean recommended earlier, is to have one computer dedicated to the test with an incognito window going, and then another computer dedicated to looking things up if you have to. Yeah. So that way, you're not accidentally dropping documents in your personal account that you were supposed to be dropping into your testing account, right, Sean?
Yes, you just said it a lot better.
And then, the UTC time is important. So it will tell you have until, let's say, Monday night at 7 p.m. UTC. That's not Pacific or Eastern or Central or anywhere else. It is somewhere. I'm not actually sure where, but you're going to want to look up at what that is to your time zone, so you don't accidentally think you have more time than you do if you're getting to the last few hours of that testing window. I think that's Kim, if you could moderate the questions in the Hangout for any exam types questions.